Hey guys, I'm Justin with Legato Financial Group. Our firm is passionate about helping educate consumers, which is why we're powering the Gaining Interest podcast. The podcast of quick conversations with industry experts on topics that you want to know about, from sports to dining to healthcare and automotive, and really everything in between. It's hosted by one of the greatest local personalities that I've met, that's John Ramsey.
I'll tell you why I love this podcast, because it's all about community. We used to call it water cooler talk, and that no longer exists. But if it's interesting to you, it's interesting to us. We encourage you to tell your friends. As Justin mentioned, we're going to talk about everything under the sun. We will be gaining interest, and we appreciate you watching. Hello and welcome in to Gaining Interest, powered by Legato Financial Group, all about anything interesting, and certainly the spirit industry is very interesting to the city of Louisville. Of course, we have bourbon, very thankful for that. We have Brown-Forman, so we know all the spirits. You're probably pretty astute when it comes to spirits, but have you noticed the recent uptick in the interest in tequila? With me now is Will Elger, and he is the founder and CEO of Hermosa Organic Tequila. I rolled the R's too much, didn't I?
Nope, you did perfect. Hermosa, which translates to beautiful. You said it perfectly.
Thank you very much. Well, your story is so interesting, as is the story of Hermosa. So I was curious. There are some parallels here. There are some parallels in that Hermosa is made and bottled in Mexico, right?
Made and bottled in Amatitlan, Jalisco, Mexico.
Okay,
yes.
You're very good at this. And there's a reason, because you're also kind of made and bottled in Mexico as well, right?
Exactly. I was born and raised in Mexico, born in Mexico City, DF, Distrito Federal. I'm Chilanco, and then raised in resort towns in Mexico. My father was a hotelier, and he managed hotels in Acapulco, Cancun, Cozumel, Cabo San Lucas, La Paz. So it was a tough upbringing being raised in Mexico in these beach resorts.
See, but interesting in that, yes, so the two parallel, you and this bottle of Hermosa, but also both of you are headquartered here in Louisville, right?
That's correct. We are made and bottled in Mexico, but just a couple miles from here is our headquarters, right here in Louisville.
I know a little bit of your backstory because I enjoy really fine tequila, and certainly Hermosa is that. I was doing just that at a local restaurant here. You and I met and started talking. So I've got a little bit of your backstory. Your father, you mentioned, in the hotel industry, and that's kind of how this whole thing started, right? Tell us about this.
It is. So, and it's a sad story today because today is the day he passed away 10 years ago.
Well, I'm sorry.
I almost canceled on you, but
I'm sorry.
10 years ago today he passed away.
Well, this is a good tribute then.
It's a good tribute. Thank you for that. But he was a hotel manager, and he'd have employees that went home, and there was an employee years and years ago when he first started managing hotels in Acapulco. He went home and he brought him back a gift, and they always, bring him back something from home, and he brought him this tequila that was, it was a Hermosa original bottle of tequila. I don't know if it was still in production at the time, but this was 30 plus years ago. And then, actually it was more than that. It could have been 50 years ago. So he got this brand, and he always talked about this Hermosa Tequila Natural, like it was just really purely made, organic, no yeast added, open air fermentation, just this amazing, crisp, clean tequila. And through my career working in the liquor industry, I worked for Jim Beam Brands for 10 years, he would always refer to, remember that tequila? He would tell the story many, many times. He would remember that story about the guy that brought me this bottle of tequila, and he'd refer to it throughout my whole life. And one time I was down in Mexico, and I was actually helping another friend start a tequila brand. And so we're looking at different distilleries in Mexico. And I was in this agave field, and kind of under my breath, we're sitting there with the owner of the distillery, and I'm under my breath. It's beautiful. You have this beautiful blue agaves that it almost looks like the ocean. It's like a blue-green color. And under my breath, I said, beautiful, in English. And he said, Hermosa. And it just triggered something where it was like, this is the spot. Can we resurrect this brand?
Wow. See, this is a tribute then to your father. It is meant to be. I firmly believe that. Interesting. When I opened up the segment, I said a recent uptick in the interest in tequila. Okay, I'm not wrong, Emma. I'm sure you keep your fingers on the pulse of the industry. So tequila right now, what is it about it? And it's not just margaritas. It's people who like fine tequila, a lot like the bourbon industry. Tequila is experiencing this kind of renaissance, right?
You're correct. You're absolutely right. Margarita is still the #1 ordered cocktail in the nation. I think it's because people order one and they usually have 3 or 4 throughout the night.
Yeah, they're good.
As opposed to other cocktails where you just have 1 or 2. But also, there's this side of tequila right now that people are, through the internet, through social media, they're discovering the quote unquote health benefits of it. So it's the agave that you use to distill the tequila. It's got natural sugars in it. So there's not added sugars. A lot of products when you're distilling them during the fermentation process, you have to add sugar. The yeast will eat the sugar and produce it. So there's no added sugars, no carbs. It's gluten-free. So there's many things. There's probiotics that help it be more of a digestive.
Wow.
Just certain things that are involved with tequila that people are like, wow, that goes with my kind of wellness.
You're justifying my love for tequila. Thank you very much. And this is all genuine. I have also heard now, of course, I'm just curious, and it may not be true because it seems to me that alcohol is alcohol, but I've also heard that tequila is the only one that is not a depressant. The tequila actually can be a stimulant somewhat. Is that true?
That's true. That's true too. It's that tequila, mezcal, it's that mescaline that's an upper, and it's good and it's bad though. If you're in a bad mood, I always tell people, like, you don't want to drink tequila. You're gonna end up getting in a liquor bicker, or you're gonna get in a fight or something. But if you're in a good mood, you'll be dancing on the bar. You'll be having a great
tequila
time.
shots and
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, but on that note, do you want to do a little taste?
I'm glad you said that because I've been eyeballing this. Now, so curious. Now, when you said, I said, taking a tequila shot. This is finely crafted tequila. You don't want to really shoot this, do you? Or do you? Sip?
It's a sipping tequila.
That's what I would think, because when you introduced me to that, I automatically said, oh, this is good stuff.
Yes, it is. And these glasses they're called caballitos. And this is how you drink tequila in Mexico. You drink it out of a caballito. There is a misconception that when people go down to Mexico and they see a tall shot glass, they think, oh, it's a shot, let's shoot it. But in Mexico, you use this caballito glass and you just sit there and you can sip on the tequila. Sometimes you'll put it's almost like a Bloody Mary mix. It's called a sangrita, and you put it right next to it. And you'll just sip on the sangrita, you'll sip on the tequila. A lot of times you'll be having food with tequila. Here we usually drink and then we get hungry. In the United States, we'll get hungry and then we'll order some food. In Mexico, a lot of times you're eating while you're drinking, and so you'll just be sipping on it. But this is a real common glass, the caballito in Mexico.
But this is not a common tequila. I think we mentioned the parallels, or I mentioned the parallels between tequila and bourbon, and I do think there is a real respect for, and definitely a difference as far as the taste buds are concerned, in really well-made, and in this case, organic tequila. So tell me about the differences, the reposados, the agave, all of the nuances that you know all about.
Yeah. So organic is a separate category here. There's 2,000 tequila brands. There's only a dozen or so organic tequilas. You'll see Hermosa Organic Tequila is one of the most awarded organic tequila brands, and it's only won gold medals. Any one of these that have been in any spirits competition, they've only won gold, from the Artisan Awards to craft competition to the San Diego Spirits Festival and the Denver Spirits Festival.
So we say organic. When I think organic, because of vegetables here in America, we're jaded that way. I always think no pesticides. That's all I know. What other is a requirement?
No pesticides, no herbicides, and no synthetic fertilizers. And it's an interesting thing, because when you wake up in the morning and you have a bowl of blueberries, there could be 57 pesticides on those blueberries. Unless you're buying organic, there could be as low as 7 pesticides. But then the interesting thing is if you're eating blueberries and strawberries and you're mixing them together, let's just say there's 10 pesticides on your blueberries and 10 on your strawberries, and you're mixing them together, you say, oh, there's 20 pesticides, but it's not true. they multiply. So you could be eating hundreds and hundreds of pesticides on your morning fruit bowl,
So
or
for
your
those who are
morning
watching
smoothie.
Gaining Interest now, okay, organic may be the way to go, folks. We
Organic
appreciate that.
is 100% the way to go. And people are getting sick, they're getting cancer. They really, as people drink tequila for the wellness aspect, also the organic is the other side. It's like you really need to think about the people that are working in the agave fields. Right now, if you go to France, one of the leading causes of cancer there are people working the vineyards, picking the grapes, and they're getting sick from the herbicides, pesticides, and the synthetic fertilizers. Same thing is happening in farms across the United States.
So it's a real thing. So actually,
real thing.
the way you manufacture this is also good for the employees, not only good for the person who likes to drink and enjoy tequila, but it's top to bottom.
100%. John, when I was telling you that story to begin with, this organic single estate agave field where this tequila is grown, where the agave is grown and this tequila is made out of that agave, it is spectacular. It is beautiful. It is a sight to see. And that's part of the reason that the name Hermosa fits so well. It was a beautiful agave field, and then these organic agaves make just a beautiful tequila.
I'm going with you. We're going. You painted a really pretty picture.
Absolutely. And the distillery, it's owned by a family that's been making tequila for 3 generations. It's a 5-step process. It's a real simple process. You get the agave. It's all hand harvested. So again, when I'm saying these people are the jimadores, the farmers are in the fields, in the crops, harvesting these agaves. It's all done by hand. They're cut in halves and fourths. They're put in a horno, an oven, and then that's how they cook the agave.
Get it ready for fermentation.
And it's a very traditional process. There's other ways where you can do shortcuts. You can do a diffuser, or you can do an autoclave. The horno is the traditional way of making tequila. Again, what makes this so special? And then from there, it goes into a trapiche where it's shredded. The agave is shredded, and right from there, it goes into the fermentation tanks. During the fermentation process, this is another amazing thing about this tequila, is there's no yeast added. So if you add yeast, like you do with bourbon and other spirits,
Sure.
it speeds up the process, and it can be done in 3 days. If you don't add yeast and you use natural airborne yeast from around the area, you get yeast from citrus trees, from whatever is in the area. And it takes over a week to ferment, but you get a really clean spirit. Yeast adds aroma and flavor. Also, a lot of people are allergic to yeast. They don't know it, but there's a local guy here. He owns some great properties, and he said, "Oh, I love this tequila. I feel great the next day." And I was trying to figure it out, and after meeting him a few times, I said, "Are you allergic to yeast by any chance?" He goes, "I am." And so in all his properties,
Wow.
he only features this Hermosa tequila.
Good for you.
And it's one of those things where he's just like, I like to feel good the next day. And
That makes perfect sense.
makes-
I mean, why do you feel bad? It's not probably the actual, in this case, agave or anything. It's just the way it's made. And if you're adding yeast to it, that makes perfect sense. Wow.
So the end of that story is then we distill it to 96 proof, and then we bottle it at 80 proof. So we use 400-foot deep well water to mix it and to balance it out and get it to 80 proof. And very close by to the distillery is a volcano, the tequila volcano. And so all the soil in the area is all high mineral volcanic soil. So you get this rainwater that just filters down through these 400 feet of volcanic soil, and you just get the cleanest water. I mean, any bottled or filtered water you've ever tasted, this is spectacular. We mix it, we balance it out there and make an 80 proof tequila that's just delicious.
And it is delicious. Again, Hermosa Organic Tequila. And boy, I love all of this. This is, that's what's great about this show, is we talk about gaining interest, anything interesting. This is educational as well. So I mentioned the parallels with bourbon. So tell me, the aging process, that's important too, isn't it?
The aging process is really important. So again, this 3-generation family-owned distillery only does traditional products. And so they'll do the Blanco or Silver, which is unaged, and you can put it in and out of a barrel for up to 2 months. But ours is unaged, goes right into the bottle. The Reposado is rested, and it can be from 2 months to a year. And then the Añejo is aged. It's Añejo means age. It's from 1 year to 3 years. And then there's an extra Añejo tequila category where it's 3 years and up.
And beyond.
And we have one of those. It's being aged, it's almost 5 years. And so that'll be bottled soon, and we'll be launching that.
So similar to bourbon, does it get smoother? Does it have more notes? What happens during the aging process to the flavor?
Similar to bourbon, it goes in and out of the wood, and it gets all those flavors, all the sweetness and the.
What kind of wood is it bottled?
So we use a lot of tequila companies use old bourbon barrels because bourbon companies can only use them once. That's the law. They can only use the barrel once, and then they have to.
Yes.
They can't use it again. So a lot of these will go down to Mexico. Going with our purity and organic, and crossing every T and dotting every I with this brand, we use barrels from Buffalo Trace, from Four Roses, and from Wild Turkey. These are bourbon companies that do not use genetically modified corn. So for the reason they don't use genetically modified corn, we feel like using these barrels on the purity of this product really goes with everything we're thinking, our sustainability,
Yeah, it falls right in line. Will, you mentioned, you threw out a big boy name there, Jim Beam, that you've worked with them. So how does a company like this compete with big corporate, big box stores, so to speak? It's got to be tough. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm convinced, and not just because of what you've told me, but the flavor. But how do you compete?
It's David and Goliath. So these larger companies, Brown-Forman locally here, Jim Beam, Diageo, they probably sell 95% of all the tequilas on the market. So it's a very, very small percentage for the small batch or entrepreneurial or celebrity or all the other tequila brands that are out there. But we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate to be in Kentucky. A lot of
12 other states, from what I understand.
It's almost 20 now.
Wow,
Yeah,
see, there you go.
But what happens is, just like here in Louisville, people hear the story and then they go tell somebody else. Kentucky is one of these amazing places to start a brand because the locals support the brand so much.
I love hearing that.
We met at Mesh, and Shep, the bartender, who introduced us, he's a perfect example. He met me, and then he's like, "Oh, I got to tell this story to you." And it's an amazing city for people to grow, for entrepreneurs and people to grow successful
No question
businesses.
about it. And one of the reasons I think it is an amazing city, and I think you'd agree, Will, is this city knows how to give back. Hermosa, sticking with the organic and being real and part of the earth and part of the world in which we live, you give back as well. I think that's important to talk about.
We give back. Since the very first bottle sold, we have planted a tree with Trees for the Future. They plant trees all over the world, sometimes for shade, sometimes for
just a canopy,
erosion.
Beautiful, yeah.
Many, many, many reasons. But we have given back, and that has led us to other things like beach cleanups, park cleanups. Just a lot of restaurants and bars and liquor stores go, "Oh, you're a brand that gives back." And I think people like supporting brands that give back.
It pays dividends to give back. Not only does it feel good here, but also, as you said, business-wise, you've made connections. People want to do business with people who are like-minded and want to help out the world. Okay, let's talk a little bit about recommendations here. I'm assuming that because of the aging process, silver may be more for a margarita and a mixed drink. But if you want to sip, what's your preference?
My preference is always the añejo. It's just delicious. It's smooth. It's you can just you just pour it straight and sip on it. But if you go to restaurants around town, you go to the Pine Room. There's a bartender there, Jeremy.
I love Jeremy.
He makes an amazing paloma with the silver.
Paloma.
An amazing paloma. You'll love it. It's the silver. He does a little salt on the rim, and it has both grapefruit juice and grapefruit soda. Gustavo's has ranch water on their menu, which is basically just the Hermosa silver with club soda and a lime. They use Topo Chico there. 211 Clover Lane has a drink on their menu. I think it's the espresso martini with tequila instead of vodka.
Interesting. Yeah. I think, again, because we're so accustomed here to talking bourbon, I relate the two so closely. But I think it's interesting that, like bourbon, again, tequila is being used in very creative ways. It's not just the margarita. It's not just the sipping a really finely crafted, what do you call this? Help me out with the glass.
Caballito.
Caballito. It's not just that. It is, I think, the conversation that is involved as well. You start talking about reposados and silver, whatever the case may be, and you go, okay, that's part of the bonding process. Like when I was talking to you, you were so knowledgeable. I was like, and you know what? It added to the whole experience of just, knowing a little bit about the brand, and then it seems like my taste buds were affected. But this is really fine tequila.
It's amazing tequila. And back to the support, everyone does well with it here in town. We have like John Johnson over at Wine Rack, who he highly recommends.
Love John.
And then you have the larger stores like you have Liquor Barn and Cox's and Evergreen and Total Wine, and everybody, they do very well. They like to recommend a locally owned product. They like the organic side of it, and they know a little bit about the story, and they do well recommending it. And then all the restaurants, from the high end Porcini's and Jack's Equus and 211. They all do very well with it. And then all the Mexican restaurants, like, again, Gustavo's and, I Love Tacos and El Mundo do very well with it. So the support is, I'm very fortunate. I can't be more thankful for all the support here in Louisville.
I love hearing that. So bottom line is, when we talk about gaining interest, everyone's interested in keeping within a budget. Let's talk price point here, if you don't mind. Obviously, again, like bourbon, like any other, delicious spirit, there's got to be a cost involved. And I would assume with each step that you take, your cost goes up as well. How are we priced as far as against the competitive market?
So if you look at, this is an ultra premium tequila, and if you look at that category, we are right with it or a little bit below. And what we were thinking when we created it was getting the juice right, getting what's inside the bottle correct. So it is the resurrected brand from 1939, and we wanted to have it traditional, organic, and no yeast, and have the same recipe there. So putting everything we can into what's inside the bottle, we figured, and this is a story I learned back in Jim Beam days. Booker Noe, who started the small batch bourbon collection, he used wine bottles, and he put nicer labels on them, but he used wine bottles. He was like, it's what's inside the bottle that matters most. So remembering that, I was like, you know what? We use a stock bottle. We use a traditional paper label. It's a beautiful packaging. It's a beautiful bottle. It's very ergonomic. If you go again to places like the Pine Room, they will use the empty bottles and they'll refill juices and stuff in it just because they like the weight and how the bottles pour. But anyway, since we were able to use a simple packaging and a low-cost packaging, not a ceramic bottle or not kind of a pewter top or what a lot of these other companies are doing, we kept it super affordable and super attainable. And that was one of our main things too. We want this to be in all the clubs in Louisville and all the high-end restaurants in Louisville, but we also want someone to finish work and be able to go into the liquor store and buy a bottle.
You don't want to get out of the price range of average Joe.
Not feel like it's like it has to be Christmas or some special occasion to do it. It has to be attainable.
Yeah, if you're going to save money, save it on the packaging. It's about the juice.
It's about the juice.
I think I like that. I like that approach, and I agree. I think that's, to me, it's like, hey, I don't care what the bottle looks like. I can afford the good stuff now because you watched those pennies with the packaging. Interesting. Advertising. It seems to me that the product speaks for itself. Is there any future plans like, okay, I'm going to get this? If let's say a Brown-Forman or a Diageo approached you and said, we want your brand, I would hope they'd keep you aboard and say, as long as you stick with the quality that you now have, the integrity of the drink, right?
Yeah, working with Jim Beam brands for almost a decade, that's what they do. Is they usually bring on brands and they stick with the story and they stick with the founders.
What made it successful?
With it and what made it successful, yeah. And that would be that seems like everybody's dream is to be liked so much by these corporations that they do buy your brand and take it to the next level. But right now, we're very happy building this brand organically and through social media, through podcasts like yours. We couldn't be, again, more fortunate to have people interested in this product and willing to share it with their audience.
I love that. Yeah, that's what Legato Financial Group has allowed me to do, is find things that maybe they don't know about. Not only is it interesting, but they can enjoy it. And you made me aware, and now I'll look for it. Speaking of looking for it, you mentioned some names there, but for folks who maybe don't live in town, okay, for folks who do, you said Pine Room, you talked about Gustavo's, any of the finer restaurants, Porcini's, any of the finer restaurants probably available to ask for it.
Yes.
Okay. And then you mentioned some of these larger chains. If someone lives in Elizabethtown or Bowling Green, where can they find Hermosa?
I'm not lying to you. It is everywhere. And if we use a distributor here in town, Republic National Distributing, RNDC, they know what this brand is. They appreciate that the owner lives here in town. They appreciate that he was born in Mexico and speaks Spanish and can get out to some of the authentic Mexican restaurants and share it with them. I do trainings, tastings, so I get out there. So every fine retailer on the liquor store side has either had it or has it right now. If they don't have it, they ran out of it. And if you just say, I'd like to buy this tequila, they'll probably order it again for you if they haven't already. And then on the restaurant side as well, a lot of them, Elizabethtown, I know there's probably all the restaurants that I've been to there has Hermosa Organic Tequila. So I don't think in the tequila world in Kentucky, I don't think you're not going to find it anywhere. Okay. If you go to other states,
good.
If you go to other states, we are again in 20 other states that do very well with it. New York down to Florida and over to California. But if you're in a state that does not have it, we work with Reserve Bar, which is an online retailer, and they'll send it right to your house.
Do you have any of I'm curious about this, do you have any of the old schoolers, who say, maybe it's the baby boomers or even older, who say, I remember the original Hermosa. This is a nice tribute. And a nice tribute to your father, by the way, again, and I don't want to get you emotional here, but it is a nice tribute to your father because he thought so highly of it, and you've resurrected it, made it successful. But do the old schoolers say that, say, this reminds me, and they're on point?
There has been, and especially in Mexico, but there was a guy just recently in California who had one of the original bottles, like that my father had. And you're getting me emotional.
And I apologize, but on the other hand, man, is he proud of you. Think of what you did. He introduces you to this. It was meant to be. You were already in the industry, the spirit industry, and you bring this together as a tribute to your father, and we can all now enjoy it. It's a great story. Well, I mean, I am so sad that your dad passed, and this happens to be the anniversary, but on the other hand, I'm sure he's smiling going, way to go, Will. Nicely done, my man.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Okay, we're going to end on this note because I want to bring it back up here. Okay, in Spanish, and I've noticed, man, you've got it really nice. You roll the R's, you do the whole 9 yards, the accent and everything. So you're authentic as your tequila is. So in Spanish, could you say, thanks to Legato Financial Group.
Gracias a Legato Financial Group.
Okay, and also say, you encourage people who love the finer things in life to try Hermosa Organic Tequila. And also, just a nice little, I don't know what a cheers is in Spanish, but maybe you can help me there as well.
Para todos que están viendo, prueba el Hermosa Tequila Orgánico y buen provecho. Salud.
Salud. What he said. Again, thank you for joining us here with Gaining Interest. I hope you found it as interesting as I did. This is delicious. Again, Hermosa Organic Tequila. Ask for it by name. Will Elger, thank you so much for your time. I really
John
appreciate
Ramsey,
it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to get to Hermosa. We're going to go. We're going to do it. All right. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Gaining Interest, powered by Legato Financial Group.